He had been up since the early hours of the morning, as he always was. The small apartment he shared with his child was quiet, save for the faint sound of a clock ticking in the living room. He rubbed his eyes, stretched, and looked around, mentally preparing himself for another long day. Life had not been easy since he became a single parent, but he had learned to face each day with patience and determination. His child, still asleep, curled under the blanket, reminded him of the purpose behind every struggle he faced. Every day was a balancing act, but he accepted it without complaint. After a quick breakfast and making sure his child had everything needed for school, he left the apartment and stepped into the cold morning air. The streets were already busy with people rushing to work, buses honking, and shopkeepers opening their stores. He walked with a steady pace, carrying a small bag of groceries he had picked up earlier. Though his mind was on his errands, he couldn't ignore the world around him. Life in the city moved fast. He always noticed the small details that many overlooked: the old man selling newspapers on the corner, the stray cat finding shelter under a parked car, the laughter of children running to school. It was during one of these walks that he noticed a girl sitting on the curb near a busy intersection. She looked small and fragile, her clothes slightly worn and her shoes covered in dust. She was holding a crumpled piece of paper in one hand and looking around nervously. There was a certain sadness in her eyes, a quiet desperation that made him pause in his tracks. Something about her made him stop and take notice. Even though he was already late for his first errand, he approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, keeping his voice calm and reassuring. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and unsure. She didn't respond immediately, her grip tightening around the paper. He knelt down slightly to be at her level. "You look like you could use some help. Can I help you with something?" For a moment, she hesitated, glancing around as if afraid someone would see her talking to a stranger. Finally, she nodded, a faint whisper escaping her lips. I just need to get somewhere." "I don't know how," he offered a warm smile. "It's okay. Don't worry. I'll help you." "Where do you need to go?" She didn't answer immediately, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the paper. He waited patiently, understanding that trust couldn't be rushed. The city around them continued to move at its usual frantic pace, but for a moment it felt like time had slowed down. She finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to get to the library. I have some papers there." "Important papers," he nodded, sensing the urgency in her words. "All right, let's get you there. Come with me. We'll take it slow." As they walked, he noticed how careful she was with every step, almost as if she was trying not to attract attention. Her eyes darted around constantly, and she clutched her bag tightly against her chest. He didn't ask questions yet, sensing that she wasn't ready to share her story. Instead, he kept the conversation light, pointing out small things along the way: a street performer playing a violin, a mother helping her child cross the street, the smell of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. Gradually, she relaxed slightly, her grip on her bag loosening just a bit. They reached the library after a short walk. She paused at the entrance, looking up at the building with a mix of determination and fear. He gave her an encouraging nod. "You're almost there. You've got this." She took a deep breath, nodded, and walked inside. He waited outside, keeping a careful watch, not wanting to intrude, but wanting to make sure she was safe. Minutes passed slowly, and he began to feel a quiet sense of concern. What if she wasn't ready to face whatever she was dealing with inside? After what felt like an eternity, she emerged from the library, clutching a small stack of papers. Her face had a faint glow of relief and accomplishment. She looked at him, a shy smile forming on her lips. "Thank you," she said simply. Her voice was soft but carried a depth of gratitude that words alone couldn't fully capture. He nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. "No problem. I'm glad I could help." As they walked back toward the busier streets, he noticed how the girl seemed lighter somehow, as if the burden she had been carrying had grown a little smaller. She still kept much to herself, but there was a subtle change in the way she moved, a small sense of confidence beginning to emerge. He didn't press for details, knowing that trust would come in time. For now, Simply being there for her was enough. They reached a small park, and he suggested they take a short break. They sat on a bench, and for a few moments, there was comfortable silence. The sounds of the city surrounded them, but it didn't feel intrusive. He offered her a bottle of water from his bag, and she accepted it with a nod of thanks. It was a simple gesture, but it carried more meaning than either of them realized. In that moment, he realized how important small acts of kindness could be, how they could create a ripple effect in someone's life. He noticed her staring at a group of children playing nearby, a faint smile crossing her face. "Do you like watching them play?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Yes, but I don't have anyone like that." Her voice held a quiet sadness, a longing for connection. He wanted to reach out and say something comforting, but he waited, understanding that words could sometimes be inadequate. Instead, he simply nodded and gave her an encouraging look. Time passed, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. He knew he couldn't stay with her forever, but he also couldn't leave her alone just yet. He decided to walk her a little further, ensuring she reached a safer area where she could continue on her own or seek help if needed. Along the way, he noticed her opening up just a little more, her voice becoming more steady, her steps more assured. Before parting ways, he gave her a reassuring smile. "Remember, you're stronger than you think, and if you ever need help, don't be afraid to ask. There are people who care." She looked at him, eyes glistening, and nodded. "I thank you. I'll remember that." It was a simple exchange, but it felt profound in its sincerity. As he watched her disappear into the crowd, he felt a strange mixture of emotions. Relief that she seemed safe, curiosity about her story, and a deep sense of empathy that lingered in his chest. He continued on with his day, but the image of the girl stayed with him. He didn't know her full story yet, but he felt a connection that went beyond a simple act of kindness. Something about her presence had left an impression, a quiet reminder of the unexpected ways lives could intersect. Back at home, he reflected on the day. His child returned from school, full of energy and stories, and he tried to focus on their happiness. Yet, his thoughts occasionally drifted back to the girl. He wondered what challenges she faced, what made her so wary, yet so brave. There was a sense of anticipation in him, a feeling that their paths might cross again. And when they did, he knew he wanted to be there. Ready to help, ready to understand, ready to make a difference. Life had a way of bringing unexpected encounters, and sometimes those encounters had the power to change perspectives, open hearts, and teach lessons in ways nothing else could. He didn't know it yet, but helping that stranger today would mark the beginning of a journey neither of them could have anticipated. A journey that would reveal truths, test compassion, and ultimately change both their lives in ways unimaginable. For now, he simply held on to the hope that kindness, once given, had a way of finding its way back. The next morning, he woke up with a lingering thought of the girl he had helped the day before. It was strange how one encounter could leave such a lasting impression. Even as he prepared breakfast for his child and got ready for work, he found his mind drifting back to her. He wondered what had happened after she left him on that busy street and whether she had been able to safely continue on her way. He tried to shake off the worry and focus on his daily routine, but a quiet part of him knew he wanted to see her again. To understand more about her story, after dropping his child off at school, he decided to take a slightly longer route through the city, hoping, perhaps foolishly, to spot the girl again. He moved slowly, scanning the streets, the parks, the corners where someone in need might linger. Life around him continued at its usual hectic pace, but he walked with patience, believing that if fate allowed, he might cross paths with her once more. He passed by small cafes and busy shops, noticing the same faces he had grown used to over the years. Yet his attention kept returning to the possibility of seeing her. It wasn't long before he saw her again. Sitting on a small bench in a quiet alley beside a community center, she had her papers spread out in front of her and was scribbling notes with focused intensity. She looked completely absorbed, as if nothing else existed in the world. When she finally looked up and noticed him, there was a flicker of surprise in her eyes. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Good morning," he said softly, keeping his voice calm and kind. She nodded in acknowledgement, a little more comfortably this time. "I didn't expect to see you again," she whispered. He smiled gently. "I thought I'd check if you were okay. Mind if I sit with you for a moment?" She hesitated, then nodded, making room for him on the bench. For a while they sat quietly, the city noises around them blending into the background. He noticed how meticulous she was with her work, how she treated her papers with care. He wanted to ask questions, to know more about her, but he knew it had to be in her own time. So he simply watched, offering silent support, letting her feel safe in his presence. After a while, she finally spoke, her voice tentative but curious. "Why do you care so much about a stranger?" He looked at her thoughtfully. "Because sometimes a small act of kindness can mean a lot to someone who feels alone. I've been there in my own way, and I know how much a little help can matter." She seemed to consider his words, her fingers tracing the edge of her papers. I've never really had anyone like that. People usually just pass by." There was a raw honesty in her voice that caught him off guard, a vulnerability that made him want to be even more careful and gentle with her. They talked slowly, cautiously about small things at first, the weather, the noise of the city, the people passing by. But gradually she began sharing more, revealing glimpses of her life, though she kept the more sensitive details hidden. He listened intently, offering words of encouragement, sharing stories of his own struggles as a single parent, without overwhelming her. The more he learned, the more he realized how strong and resilient she was. Even if she tried to hide it behind quiet eyes and careful movements, as the morning turned into afternoon, they continued their slow conversation, sometimes pausing to let the silence stretch comfortably between them. He noticed the little signs that indicated she trusted him more than she did most people, a fleeting smile, a relaxed posture, a moment where she didn't flinch when he reached out to guide her away from a patch of uneven pavement. He felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that his presence could offer her some comfort, even if temporary. He also saw moments of joy in her that were subtle but unmistakable. When a bird landed near them, she let out a quiet laugh. When a small child ran past, she smiled, though her eyes held a hint of longing. These glimpses told him that underneath the cautious exterior, there was a bright, curious mind and a gentle heart. He admired her for it, wanting to protect that spark rather than overwhelm it. Eventually, realized it was time for him to continue with his day. "I should probably get going soon," he said softly. She looked up at him, a slight frown of disappointment crossing her face. "Will I see you again?" she asked. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I hope so. And when you need help, remember, you're not alone. Sometimes reaching out is all it takes." She nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them. There was a connection forming, fragile but genuine, built on trust, patience, and kindness. Before parting ways, he offered her a small notebook from his bag, one he had bought for her earlier without mentioning it. "For your notes," he said simply. She took it, looking at him with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "It's okay. Use it however you like," he replied, a small smile on his face. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes about his care and thoughtfulness. As he watched her walk away, he felt a strange mix of emotions, curiosity about her life, concern for her safety, and a growing sense of responsibility. He knew he couldn't force her to share her story, but he could be there when she was ready. That thought alone filled him with both hope and a quiet determination. He returned to his own errands, but her presence lingered in his mind, a reminder of the unexpected ways people could touch each other's lives. Back at home, he tried to focus on his child and their afternoon together, but his thoughts often drifted back to her. He found himself wondering what challenges she faced and what circumstances had brought her to that quiet alley. He knew he couldn't ignore the feeling that their paths had crossed for a reason. Maybe it was chance, maybe it was fate, but either way, he felt a responsibility to continue offering support when possible. Days passed, and their encounters became more frequent, though always at her pace. He learned to read her subtle cues, the way she hesitated before answering, the brief smiles that appeared when she felt safe, the quiet sighs that hinted at stress or worry. With each meeting, their bond deepened, not through grand gestures, but through small, consistent acts of care and understanding. He saw her confidence grow gradually. She began asking questions, sharing small details about her life, and even laughing at minor jokes he made. It was a delicate process, built on patience and respect. He felt proud, not of himself, but of her resilience and willingness to open up, knowing it had not been easy. One afternoon, as they sat on the same bench in the quiet alley, she turned to him with a more serious expression. "I've been hiding something," she admitted. He nodded, sensing the importance of the moment. "You don't have to tell me everything right now. When you're ready, I'll listen. No judgment, just understanding." She looked at him, a mixture of relief and anxiety on her face. "I think I can tell you a little, but please don't think badly of me." He smiled gently, reassuring her. "I won't. Take your time. Just tell me what you feel comfortable sharing." It was a pivotal moment. She began opening up about her life in bits and pieces, revealing struggles that were deeply personal. He listened intently, offering empathy and guidance, never interrupting, never rushing her. The trust they were building allowed her to feel safe enough to speak, even if only partially. And in turn, he felt a quiet fulfillment, knowing that his willingness to listen and care made a difference in her life. By the time their meeting ended, the girl looked more at ease, a faint smile lingering on her face. He gave her a reassuring nod. "You're doing well. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to carry everything alone." She nodded, clutching her papers a little less tightly than before. "Thank you for everything," she whispered. He smiled softly, feeling that familiar warmth in his chest as he walked away. He realized that these moments were changing him too. They were teaching him patience, compassion, and the quiet power of simply being present for someone. Life had thrown challenges his way before, but helping her brought a new sense of purpose and connection. He didn't know what the future held, but he felt certain that their paths had crossed for a meaningful reason, and he was ready to continue this journey with care and understanding. Days turned into weeks, and their encounters became a small routine built on trust and quiet understanding. The single dad continued his daily life, balancing work, parenting, and the growing concern he felt for the girl. He often thought about how fragile yet resilient she seemed, how much courage it took to navigate the challenges she faced, and how important it was for her to know that someone cared. Each meeting was brief, careful, but meaningful, leaving small but lasting impressions on both of them. One afternoon, he noticed the girl sitting on the same park bench they had used before, but this time she looked different. There was a tension in her shoulders, a shadow over her expression. She wasn't scribbling in her notebook or smiling at the children playing nearby. Instead, she stared at the ground, her hands tightly clutching her bag. Something was wrong, and he knew it instantly. He approached slowly, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "Hey, is everything okay?" She flinched slightly at the sound of his voice, but didn't look up. He knelt down beside her, careful not to crowd her space. "You can tell me if something's bothering you. I'm here to listen." Her eyes flickered toward him, but only for a moment before she looked away again. I don't know what to do," she admitted, her voice trembling. He listened without interrupting, giving her the space to express herself. "Take your time," he said softly. "You don't have to figure it all out at once. We can think through it together." There was a pause, heavy and tense, as though she was trying to measure whether she could trust him with what she was about to say. Finally, she whispered, "People are looking for me. I can't go back. I don't know where to hide." His heart tightened. He realized that her story was more complicated than he had imagined. There was danger, uncertainty, and fear wrapped in the quiet girl he had been helping. Yet, he knew that panicking would not help her. Instead, he took a deep breath and offered reassurance. "You're not alone. I'll help you. We'll figure this out together." Her eyes widened slightly at the sincerity in his voice, and he could see the flicker of hope mingling with her fear. Over the next few hours, he helped her think through her options. They moved to a quieter spot, away from the busy paths of the park, and he asked gentle questions, trying to piece together what she could share without pushing her too hard. She explained in fragments about the people who were searching for her, though she didn't give names or details. All he could gather was that she was in a difficult situation, something that required careful handling and understanding. He reassured her with calm, practical advice. They made a plan for her safety, considering places she could go and people she could trust. Even as he guided her, he felt the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. It wasn't just about helping a stranger anymore. It was about ensuring her well-being in a situation that could potentially be dangerous. He knew he had to act carefully, thinking several steps ahead, and yet he never let her see the worry etched on his face. He wanted her to feel safe, not more afraid. During this time, she opened up a little more, revealing small details about her life and the challenges she faced. She talked about trying to manage her studies, finding ways to stay unnoticed, and the loneliness of having no one to rely on. Each story was filled with courage, but also with vulnerability, and he felt a deep empathy for her. He understood the struggle of being alone in a complex world, and he wanted to give her a sense of stability, even if temporary, as they navigated this challenge together. The single dad faced his own difficulties. He had work obligations, responsibilities to his child, and the constant worry that he might not be able to protect her as much as she needed. But he stayed focused, determined to offer what support he could. He made calls, researched safe spaces, and considered every possible option for her protection. The process was exhausting, yet he felt an unwavering commitment to her well-being. Meanwhile, the girl observed his dedication and reliability, and her trust in him grew stronger. She began to see that he was not just a helper for a brief moment, but someone she could depend on in more significant ways. The bond between them deepened, built on shared moments of problem-solving, quiet understanding, and mutual respect. She began to relax, allowing herself to rely on him without fear of judgment. One evening, after a particularly long day of planning and ensuring her safety, they sat together on a quiet bench under the dim glow of a street lamp. The city around them had begun to calm, the noise of daytime traffic replaced by a gentle hum of distant sounds. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and anxiety. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said softly. He smiled, though tired, and replied, "You're stronger than you realize. But sometimes even the strongest people need help. That's okay." In the days that followed, they continued to navigate her situation carefully. He helped her find temporary safe spaces, connected her with trustworthy individuals who could provide assistance, and guided her in making cautious decisions. Despite the stress and challenges, he never let her feel abandoned or judged. Each small victory, whether it was finding a safe spot or successfully avoiding danger, strengthened their connection and reinforced the trust she had placed in him. There were moments of tension and fear. She would sometimes receive a message or encounter someone suspicious, and panic would ripple through her small frame. Each time, he would remain calm, helping her breathe through the fear, think rationally, and take measured steps. His patience became her anchor, and his support gave her the courage to keep moving forward. She began to understand that even in a world that seemed threatening and uncertain, there could be someone who cared enough to stay by her side. One afternoon, as they walked through a quiet street toward a safe location he had identified, she finally shared a fragment of her story. "I'm not like other kids," she said quietly, almost afraid of his reaction. He looked at her calmly, giving her the space to continue. I come from a family that doesn't want me to be seen here. They think I'm a problem." Her words were hesitant, filled with fear, but also honesty. He nodded slowly, not showing judgment, but instead empathy. "I see you, and I believe you. That's what matters right now. We'll keep moving forward together." That moment marked a subtle turning point. Though she still faced uncertainty and challenges, sharing even a part of her truth brought a sense of relief and connection. She realized that he truly cared, not for what she had or hadn't done, but for her well-being and safety. And he, in turn, realized that helping her was no longer a simple act of kindness, it had become a commitment. One that he embraced fully despite the complications it brought to his life. As days turned into nights, They continued their cautious journey through challenges that tested both their resolve and their bond. Each decision required thoughtfulness. Each encounter demanded patience. And each step reinforced the quiet understanding that they were no longer strangers. They had become companions, navigating a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Yet with trust and care, moments of safety and hope could be found. Despite the difficulties, there were moments of warmth and connection. They would share small laughs over insignificant things, like a bird landing nearby or a funny comment about a passerby. She began to show glimpses of her natural self, the curiosity and humor that had been hidden beneath caution and fear. He found joy in those moments, realizing that even amid challenges, life offered spaces for light, connection, and shared humanity. The challenge she faced was far from over. But their partnership had grown stronger. He had become her guide, protector, and confidant, while she had become a reminder of resilience, courage, and the importance of trust. Together they navigated the difficulties, learning from each step, supporting each other through the uncertainty, and building a bond that neither of them could have anticipated when they first met on that quiet street weeks ago. By the end of this chapter in their lives, both of them were changed. She had grown more confident in asking for help, more willing to share her burdens, and more trusting of someone who truly cared. He had grown more aware of the power of empathy, patience, and quiet determination. Together they had faced challenges that tested their hearts, minds, and courage, setting the stage for a revelation that would transform their understanding of each other and the journey they had begun. The day began quietly, but there was a sense of anticipation in the air. The single dad woke up early, the city still half asleep, and he felt a mixture of concern and curiosity about the girl he had been helping. Over the past few weeks, he had come to know her courage, her resilience, and the cautious way she navigated the world. Yet, he had never fully understood the weight of the story she carried. Today, something felt different, though he couldn't put a name to it. After dropping his child off at school, he took the familiar route through the city, hoping to see her. And there she was, waiting in a small courtyard near a quiet cafe, looking more at ease than he had seen her in days. Her eyes met his, and for the first time there was a subtle mixture of resolve and vulnerability in her gaze. She motioned for him to sit beside her, and he did. Sensing that this meeting was important, she hesitated for a moment, gathering her courage. Then she began, her voice soft but steady. "I need to tell you something about who I am. Something I haven't told anyone." He nodded, giving her his full attention. "Take your time," he said. "I'm listening." She looked down at her hands, then back at him, her eyes searching for reassurance. "I didn't want people to see me like this. I didn't want anyone to treat me differently. But the truth is, I come from a wealthy family. A very wealthy family, and to lull them. I was supposed to live a life that I didn't want, a life full of expectations, rules, and control. I didn't belong there, not really. So I ran away. I've been hiding, trying to figure out who I am and where I belong." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "I never expected anyone to care about me for me, not for what I had, not for who I am." He sat quietly for a moment, taking in her words. He realized the depth of the struggles she had been carrying silently, the isolation, the fear, and the overwhelming pressure of living in a world where she felt trapped by her own family. His heart went out to her, and he felt a surge of empathy. "Thank you for trusting me with this," he said gently. "It doesn't change the way I see you. You're brave, and you've handled so much on your own. I admire your courage, and I care about you for who you are, not what you have." She looked at him, relief washing over her face. For the first time, she felt understood without judgment, seen for her true self. It was a small but powerful moment, a shift in the dynamic that had been building between them. She realized that someone genuinely cared for her well-being and respected her choices, and that trust was liberating. Over the next few hours, they talked more openly than ever before. She shared stories about her family, the expectations she had escaped, and the reasons she had chosen to run away. He listened, offering gentle guidance, helping her think through her options out and reassuring her that she didn't have to face the world alone. Each story she told revealed not weakness, but resilience and intelligence. Despite the challenges she faced, she had managed to navigate them with grace and caution. He also shared parts of his own life. About being a single parent, the struggles of balancing work and raising a child, and the loneliness that sometimes accompanied his responsibilities. The sharing created a deeper bond between them, a mutual understanding that each had faced hardships, and that support, empathy, and connection were powerful tools in facing life's challenges. As the day progressed, they discussed practical matters. She needed to find safe places to stay, resources for her education, and ways to remain secure while figuring out her next steps. He helped her make a plan using his knowledge of the city, connections he trusted, and his experience in problem solving. They moved carefully, always prioritizing her safety, and each decision strengthened her confidence. She began to see that while her past had been complicated, the present offered opportunities for support, learning, and growth. Throughout their time together, there were moments of levity and warmth. They laughed quietly at small jokes, observed the mundane life around them, shared stories that weren't heavy or serious. It was a delicate balance, navigating the weight of her story, while also allowing space for normalcy and joy. These moments reinforced the human connection between them, showing that even in difficult circumstances, trust and kindness could create small islands of peace and happiness. By evening, they had found a temporary safe spot for her, a quiet apartment room he had arranged through a trusted contact. She settled in, still cautious, but beginning to feel a small sense of relief. He watched her for a moment, seeing the mix of anxiety and hope in her expression. "You're doing the right thing, taking care of yourself," he said softly. She looked at him, her eyes glistening. "I feel lighter somehow. I didn't know anyone could care like this." He nodded, understanding that his consistent support had begun to lift the weight she had been carrying alone as they prepared to part for the evening. He reminded her of their plan and the precautions they had discussed. "We'll continue tomorrow, step by step," he said. "You're not alone, and we'll figure this out together." She smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and trust in her expression. "Thank you, truly. I don't know how I would have managed without you." He gave her a reassuring nod. Feeling that familiar warmth in his chest, the quiet satisfaction of helping someone who had faced immense challenges and showing them that support and compassion could change the course of their experience. Walking home, he reflected on the day. The revelation of her true background had not altered his care for her. If anything, it had deepened it. He realized that people's lives were complex, filled with hidden struggles and stories that often went unseen. And he understood that sometimes all a person needed was someone willing to be there, someone willing to listen, and someone willing to offer steady support without judgment. That night, as he prepared for the next day, he thought about how much they had both grown. She had shown trust, vulnerability, and bravery in revealing her story. He had demonstrated patience, empathy, and commitment to her well-being. Their bond had strengthened in ways that neither of them could have anticipated, built on understanding, care, and mutual respect. The revelation also sparked a sense of hope for the future. He knew that challenges still lay ahead, but the knowledge of her background provided clarity about the obstacles she had overcome and the resources she might be able to access. It also reinforced the importance of their connection, the understanding that someone could care deeply for her. Not for her wealth or family, but for her as a person, in the quiet moments before sleep. He reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. From a chance encounter on a busy street, to the cautious conversations on park benches, to helping her navigate challenges, and now to the revelation of her true background. He saw how life's unexpected connections could change both parties in profound ways. The simple act of helping a stranger had evolved into a meaningful, human connection that offered trust, guidance, and hope. He knew that the next steps would continue to be delicate. Decisions had to be made carefully, safety had to remain a priority, and trust had to be nurtured. But he felt confident in their growing partnership. Together, They had faced uncertainty, navigated challenges, and discovered a bond that transcended circumstance. And with this newfound understanding, both of them could move forward with courage, empathy, and the quiet knowledge that they were no longer alone in facing the complexities of life. The days that followed were filled with careful steps and quiet progress. The girl had begun to feel a sense of safety she hadn't known for a long time, and the single dad continued to guide and support her as they navigated her life. The revelation of her background had brought clarity, not judgment, and it allowed both of them to face the future with renewed understanding. Their connection, built on trust, patience, and kindness, had become stronger than ever. Each morning he would check on her well-being, assuring she had what she needed for school, food, and shelter. Though he had his own responsibilities, he made time, knowing that consistent support mattered more than grand gestures. She, in turn, began to rely on him in a healthy, trusting way, learning that asking for help didn't mean weakness, but courage. Their conversations grew deeper, filled with honesty, guidance, and moments of lightness, laughter, and shared understanding. One afternoon, they went to a quiet park, a safe space they had both come to appreciate. She sat on a bench, her notebook in hand, while he brought her a bottle of water and sat beside her. "I never thought anyone would see me for who I am, not for what I have, not for my mistakes," she said quietly. He listened, giving her the space to speak. "And yet, you are exactly who you are," he replied gently. "You're brave, resourceful, and kind, and you're not alone anymore." The girl looked at him, her eyes reflecting gratitude and relief. "It's strange," she said. "I've been running for so long, hiding from everyone, thinking I couldn't trust anyone. And now, I feel like I finally can." He nodded, understanding the weight behind her words. Sometimes it just takes one person who cares to make a difference. One person who listens, who doesn't judge, who believes in you. Over the following weeks, she began to embrace small opportunities for growth. With his guidance, she connected with tutors, found a safe place to study, and even began forming friendships with people who would not judge her background. Each step forward brought confidence, and he watched with pride as her self-assurance slowly grew. It was not an easy journey, and there were moments of fear, hesitation, and doubt. But they faced each challenge together. One day, while walking through a busy street, they noticed a group of children playing near a fountain. She paused, watching them with a quiet smile. "I wish I could just play like that without worrying about who's watching or what might happen next," she said softly. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "One day you will. For now, you're learning to take care of yourself and make choices that keep you safe. Play and freedom will come when the time is right." The single dad also noticed subtle changes in himself. He had learned patience, empathy, and the quiet power of presence. Helping her navigate her life had brought new meaning to his own, reminding him of the impact one person could have in another's world. His own child, observing the care he showed, began to understand kindness, trust, and compassion in ways that went beyond simple words. As time passed, the girl began sharing more of herself with him, her thoughts, ideas, and dreams. She spoke of her love for books, her desire to explore the world, and the hope of a life not dictated by fear or obligation. He listened, offered encouragement, and helped her make realistic plans for the future. They celebrated small achievements together, whether it was completing a school assignment, making a new friend, or finding a safe place to stay. Each success reinforced the lessons of trust, perseverance, and the value of support. One evening, they sat together on a rooftop overlooking the city. The lights twinkled below, and there was a gentle breeze. She looked at him with a quiet smile. "You've changed my life," she said. "Not because of what you did, but because you believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." He smiled softly, feeling warmth in his chest. "You've changed mine too," he replied. "Helping you has reminded me of the importance of patience, empathy, and human connection. You've taught me as much as I've taught you. There were challenges still ahead, of course, but the foundation they had built allowed them to face the future with confidence. They had learned to navigate fear, uncertainty, and complex circumstances with trust, support, and careful planning. The girl had gained a sense of belonging and courage, while he had gained a renewed understanding of compassion, responsibility, and the quiet power of simply being present for someone who needed it. Their story began to ripple outward. The girl, with his encouragement, started reaching out to supportive individuals and institutions who could offer guidance and education. She discovered that her past didn't define her and that her future was shaped by choices, courage, and the support of people who genuinely cared. The single dad continued to guide her, providing mentorship and a steady presence as she took her next steps in life. One day, as they walked through the city, she stopped and looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "I never expected to find someone like you," she said. "Someone who cares, who listens, who doesn't judge. You've shown me that kindness can change everything." He nodded, smiling. "It can, and you've shown me that courage and trust are equally powerful. You faced so much, and yet here you are, growing stronger each day." Over time, their relationship evolved into a true partnership built on mutual respect, understanding, and care. The girl continued her studies, built connections with supportive individuals, began to envision a future filled with possibilities she hadn't dared to imagine before. He continued to support her, balancing his responsibilities as a parent with his role as a guide and mentor. Together, they navigated life's complexities, discovering that even in difficult circumstances, trust, empathy, and compassion could create lasting change. The single dad reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple act of kindness on a busy street. A chance encounter had transformed into a meaningful connection, one that altered both their lives in profound ways. He had learned that small acts of care, patience, and presence could create ripples of trust and hope. And she had learned that even in a world filled with challenges, support and understanding could open doors to a brighter future. One quiet evening, as they watched the sun set over the city, she turned to him with a soft smile. "Thank you for being there for me," she said. "Not for what I have or who I come from, but for who I am." He smiled back, a sense of fulfillment warming him. "And thank you for trusting me, for allowing me to help, and for showing me the strength of your courage. Together, we faced challenges and grown stronger because of it." Their journey was far from over, but the foundation they had built allowed both of them to face the future with hope, courage, and confidence. The girl had discovered that asking for help was not a sign of weakness, but an expression of strength and trust. The single dad had discovered that kindness, patience, and empathy could create profound change in someone's life. Together, they had transformed not just the girl's world, but their own, finding hope, connection, and a shared understanding of what it meant to care deeply for another human being. As the stars began to appear in the sky, they sat together in quiet reflection, knowing that the journey had been challenging yet rewarding. Their bond, forged through trust, shared struggles, and mutual respect, had become unbreakable. And as they looked toward the future, both felt a quiet assurance that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them with courage, empathy, and the knowledge that the simplest acts of kindness could change everything.